Hey guys, it's Clay on the trail here, and I wanted to talk a little bit today about winter camping. What can we do to get rid of some of the dangers involved with winter camping? And I'm talking about winter camping here in Wyoming or Utah, and the UNS is where I usually go, where temperatures can reach well below zero. Our summertime temperatures are great. During the daytime it might hit 80 degrees, and at nighttime you might get down 40-50 degrees. Wintertime is a whole nother story. So what are some of the things we need to do to make sure we're prepared? Alright, some of the obvious things are things that we do during the summertime, wintertime, spring, fall, it doesn't really matter. The most important thing in staying warm while we're camping is to stay hydrated. If you're hydrated, your body will have good circulation and the blood will reach the far extremes, your hands and your feet, and it will help you stay warm. Number two is make sure you have the proper gear. I do a little teaching with search and rescue, and when it comes to wintertime, my slogan is cotton kills. Don't wear cotton socks, don't wear cotton pants. If they get wet, you will freeze. Cotton absorbs water. Synthetic materials or wool don't absorb water and actually allow the moisture to escape your body through. So my winter gear for clothing would include a pair of generally mid-weight polypropylene bottoms. I have a merino wool shirt, and I wear merino wool socks, and usually two pair of them. I make sure my shoes are big enough that I can fit with two pair. I have a down puffy coat, hard shell coat, and some soft shell coats. And you need to make sure you're layering. If you start sweating, you need to take layers off. If you get all wet sweating, you will absolutely freeze. And if you go to bed cold, it takes forever to warm up if you can warm up. So another thing to consider while you're winter camping is your food. Your calories need to go way up from what you would normally eat. Energy equals warmth. So make sure you're eating good stuff, hot stuff, even for breakfast. I normally can get away with some granola bars or something and hit on the trail. When I'm winter camping, it is hot oatmeal with hot chocolate, anything warm, dinners. Go big. I've been watching the Backpack Blazer, and he just did a camp out with Haggard Wilderness where they pre-cooked some ribs, wrapped them in tinfoil, and just heated them back up on the stove. They each had a full rack of ribs, and that would be pretty awesome on a winter camp. Okay, so let's talk about my camping setup. I used to tent camp, and I have tent camped for a lot of years in some really, really cold temperatures. The one year we skied up and summited Kings Peak, we did it in March, which is really springtime, but we hit a low of 17 below one of the nights. And we were all warm. There was three of us. We stayed in a three-man tent. We all brought more than one sleeping pad. This was the era before real good insulated sleeping pads they have nowadays. I have a ProLite 4, which is still my go-to tent camping pad because I really don't tent camp anymore. And they have some awesome upgrades from that. But using more than one pad to get you up off the ground. One of the other tricks I learned was to use a bivy sack. Even though we're inside a tent, I pull a bivy sack up over top of me, and it just helps hold in the heat that your body produces and helps your sleeping bag insulate. Now I have mostly summer camping gear for our area, summer camping gear. I sleep cold and I like to be warm. So I actually have a 0-degree bag that I use year round. But in the wintertime, 0-degree bag isn't good enough for me. One of the tricks I learned doing winter camps, lots of sleeping pads, good 0-degree bag, the bivy sack to help hold in the heat. Sometimes that's not good enough. One of the tricks that I've always used is to take some Nalgene bottles, fill them up with boiling water, and stick them inside your sleeping bag. you'll be amazed. In the morning, you'll still have hot water, hot enough to make hot chocolate or your oatmeal. Easy to cool off and stick in your bag, just stick it in the snow, and you've got water for the next day. And it will keep you amazingly warm. And I carry 2 of them. No, anyway, there's 2 of them in here. I put one by my feet and one in the small of my back, and I rotate the one in the small of my back to my stomach, depending on if I get cold or not. And I have actually been run clean out of my sleeping bag, where I have to take them out of my sleeping bag and put them between me and my baby sack. They're still warm in the morning, and that's an excellent, excellent way to stay warm. So suddenly, I'm a convert to hammock camping. This is my Outdoor Vitals ultralight hammock. This is a 10-footer. They make a longer one and a shorter one. This one I'm 5'9", 5'10"-ish, somewhere in there, and this one fits me just right. The problem with hammock camping, summer or winter, you smash down the insulation in your sleeping bag and there's no insulation on the bottom of your hammock, and it has to be hot to sleep comfortably without insulation. So the first couple years that I hammock camped, I had a Hennessy hammock, which is a bug net, tarp, hammock, all in one sort of setup, and I was still using my ProLite 4, which was enough insulation to keep the cool air from coming up from underneath and being on your body. But as I slept, the pad would slip out from underneath me, and my shoulders would start getting cold, and then my torso, and the pad would curl up around my feet. So they make what they call underquilts. You guys are, that's not a new thing. Underquilts and top quilts have been out for a long time. So I purchased a 20-degree underquilt, which I planned on using for both summer and winter. But 20-degree underquilt is not enough. So what can we do to optimize what I have? I don't have the kind of money, I'm not sponsored, and I don't have the kind of money to have 20 different bags. I have a couple different bags, and there's actually something we can do. So one of the reasons I picked the underquilt that I did is this zipper program right here. My underquilt has a zipper that allows you to put your hammock inside of it and zip all the way up. There is a bit of a hole down on this end that allows air in, and there's no hood on this end, so you get a little air from each end. But I figured ways to combat that. All right. Sometimes they're a pain to get into. So with the underquilt, it's really, really important that it's adjusted correctly. Otherwise, you'll get a breeze if the wind blows, you'll run a breeze in between where it opens up at the head and the foot. So I reach down between my underquilt and my hammock when I'm laying in it, and I want to make sure that there's just a couple of inches, or it's even touching my butt. The underquilt is. So in theory, and I actually spent the night just like this last summer up at Teal Lake with this setup. And I stayed absolutely wonderfully warm, except for my feet, where I don't know if you can see my toe or not, the breeze just blew through there absolutely all night long. So how hard would it be to stuff a bag full of clothes or something in there to prevent the breeze from coming through? And I would, in the summertime, this is a great system. I don't actually even need a top quilt. All right, guys, how about combining something I very much dislike with something I love? How about a little math to help us with our camping? I found this mathematic equation on backpackinglight.com. It's a forum. I was just searching on how to get the combined rating of 2 sleeping bags, and this is what they've come up with. So A is your lower degree bag, or your lowest rated bag. Mine will be a 0 degree bag. My higher rated bag goes where B is, and when you do the formula, you get the combined rating. So the formula is temperature rating of 1 sleeping bag minus 70 minus the temperature rating of a second sleeping bag divided by 2. So I've taken, later on in my video you're going to hear me do the wrong number, but we'll correct it right here. So my sleeping bag is a 0 degree bag. My underquilt is a 20 degree bag. So filling in the numbers, it's 0 minus 70 minus 20 divided by 2. So 70 minus 20 is 50. So 0 minus 50 is minus 50 divided by 2 gives me a temperature rating of minus 25 when I combine my sleeping bag with my underquilt. My 0 degree bag with my 20 degree underquilt gives me a temperature rating of negative 25. Okay, the same mathematic equation using my 40 degree bag, 20 degree underquilt. Let's see, 70 minus 20 is 50. So we have 40 minus 50 is going to be negative 10. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. So by using my 40 degree sleeping bag with my underquilt gives me a temperature rating of 5 below. Okay, so one of the things I purchased probably 10 years ago, this is a 40 degree down sleeping bag, and it can get downright small. So my go-to summertime bag is my 20 degree underquilt, and I use my 40 degree bag as a top quilt. And again, I can get this all inside and zip up. It takes care of the hole down at the bottom where the wind blows in on my feet and keeps me quite warm. But come wintertime, using the Algebra that I showed you, I can combine 20 degrees with 40 degrees and never do math when you're videoing, but I did it before and I believe it's good for negative 5, which is a huge difference. And all I do is unzip my bag, open it up, and I actually put it underneath my hammock. And I run it on the feet side, the head side down by my feet, because it will actually spread up and come up alongside this. And that's providing me negative 5 temperature rating to about here, clear up the sides, and then where the zipper closes, it's just directly underneath me where I need it most. When I add my 0 degree bag on top, doing the algebra with my 20-degree underquilt zipped up and my 0-degree bag on top of me is a top quilt. I put my feet down in the foot box and then just pull the rest up over and tuck it into my shoulders. I tuck the hood back under itself so it's not in my face. Because again, no one's buying me this equipment. Everything I have, I've paid for myself. But using a 0-degree bag plus a 20-degree bag with the algebra comes down to -15. So all the way around, I'm good for -5 on the bottom, -15 on the top. And that should be plenty warm. If I get in a bind, boil water, put it in your Nalgene bottles, put it in your bag. It really works. As I stated before, when I was a tent camper, one way to help hold in your heat is to use a bivy sack. And a bivy sack is just basically, it's Gore-Tex bag, a Gore-Tex bag that just is barely bigger than your sleeping bag. And you put your bag inside of it with your sleeping pads and it just helps hold in all the heat. I have a couple of these and I just don't use them anymore, so I made a small slit on the foot end of this bivy sack and I'm able to thread it and pull it up over top of my hammock system to add that much more warmth to it. Okay, one of the concerns I have, because I actually just did this the other day and I actually have not tried this out. Am I going to produce moisture through sweat, through my breath, and wake up soaking wet inside this? I don't think so. I've slept in this a number of times on the ground, and I don't see what difference being in a hammock will make. It's Gore-Tex. It permeates. If you zip the head up, and this has a zipper that goes all the way around, if I were to zip this up to where it was tight and not allow the moisture from my breath to escape, yes, I would end up with all sorts of condensation inside. But if you leave it open, where your head is, your breath is exhaling outside of it, shouldn't be too bad inside here. We'll have to try it and find out. So this pretty well takes care of the feet, the legs, and probably up to about your chest. Up on this end, where my bag's open, it's going to allow air in on my shoulders and my head. So what's your solution? I sleep in my puffy. It doesn't insulate where I'm laying on it, but it doesn't matter. I have 2 bags plus my bivy sack, but it does take care of my arms and my shoulders and my upper torso. The other thing is a beanie. I have my summer sleeping beanie. I sleep in it all the time. Here's sort of a mid-weight or a cold summer weight. It's just fleece. Wool, a little heavier duty. And then my absolute freezing beanie, just a regular other beanie. This one is my absolute freezing beanie. Fleece, windproof, the whole works. And when you do this all up, anything that's sticking out will help stay warm. Now I have a hard time sleeping stuffed down inside my bag, but when it gets that cold, I deal with it. And I actually can sleep quite comfortably tucked down inside. So it doesn't mean just because there's no hood on your underquilt, doesn't mean you're going to sleep with your head sticking out all night long. At least I don't. Okay, so the other thing that I use, because my underquilt covers from my feet to my shoulders, and my head actually ends up sticking out in the hammock up here. So I bought a sit pad, which I use as my pillow. And it helps insulate where my head lays that's not insulated from underneath. Okay, one thing I haven't taken the time to put up, I do actually have a 6-sided tarp that goes up over. In the summertime, I like to, wind is, say, coming from that direction, I would take that side all the way to the ground, and I use my hiking poles to raise this end up so I have a good view. Wintertime, I would bring it down A-frame on both sides. But let's put the whole system to work here. Let's see how it works. This does take a little time to get into. Perfect. Toasty, toasty warm. So I guess what's the point of a video like this? Is this a filler video? Well, I've had a couple of things happen recently that have prevented me from getting out into the outdoors. So is it a filler? Maybe this is a filler video. What about the guy that's sitting at home and only has summer equipment that wants to go winter camping but can't afford it? Use your summer stuff. Double it up. The algebraic equation I showed you earlier works stuffing a sleeping bag inside another sleeping bag. If you have a 0-degree bag and a 40-degree bag, or a 20-degree bag and a 40-degree bag, you can get down to some really low temperatures. And by stacking sleeping pads underneath you, getting up off the ground, getting that extra insulation, really makes all the difference in the world. So get out and adventure. Get out and try stuff. The first night that I tried this system out, which I was planning on doing this weekend, and it just didn't happen. We've had a big bad windstorm that actually drifted me into my house. I don't have anybody to come plow my road. I live on a private road, and I couldn't get out. I just physically couldn't drive anywhere. So next week I'm planning on taking this system up in the mountains, giving it a shot. I'm not going to hike in 10 miles somewhere. I'm going to hike in a mile off the road, and if this system absolutely fails, I will gather my stuff up and walk out. So be prepared for anything, but don't be afraid to give things a try. Winter camping is fun. Be prepared for long nights. There's 12 to 14 hours of darkness. You get up in the canyons up here in the Uintas, and there's even longer times of darkness. So build a fire, hang out by it. You got to stay up as long as you can. Just because it gets dark at 6 o'clock doesn't mean you want to go to bed at 6 o'clock, or you will be up at 2 o'clock in the morning and have nothing to do, and it will be freezing. So enjoy yourself. Bring your phone, watch a movie, read a book, hang out by the fire. Most of all, just get out and have fun. Thanks for watching. I appreciate all the subscribers I have. Thanks. Please give this a thumbs up, share, and subscribe if you haven't. Thanks very much.